Going on a trip. No fever. Hey, Indiana don't got good weather. Don't talk about my state or my city.
Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. You all might have noticed lately, Caitlin Clark fans, that you've been getting raked over the coals from pretty much every direction imaginable. It doesn't seem to matter whether it's certain members of the media, certain WNBA commentators, or people who seem determined to defend every single thing the Indiana Fever organization does. The criticism keeps coming. First, it felt like the focus was on attacking Caitlin Clark herself. Then, when that didn't land the way some people expected, it feels like the attention shifted directly toward fans. And that's what I want to talk about today. Because at some point, you have to ask a very simple question. Why? Why are sports fans being criticized for acting like sports fans? Seriously, think about it for a second. Why are people so upset that fans have opinions? Why are people so upset that fans ask questions? Why are people so upset that fans support the players they like? That's what makes this entire situation so strange. The reality is that the WNBA has experienced a level of attention that it has never seen before. The television ratings are higher, the arena attendance is higher, merchandise sales are higher, social media engagement is higher. The conversations surrounding the league are bigger than they've ever been. A huge part of that conversation revolves around Caitlin Clark. Whether people like hearing that or not, it's simply reality. Caitlin Clark brought millions of new eyes to the sport. She brought casual fans. She brought basketball fans. She brought sports fans. She brought people who had never watched a WNBA game before. And with those new fans comes something that every major sports league deals with: scrutiny. That's part of the deal. You can't ask for all the benefits of being a major sports league while rejecting every single criticism that comes with it. Fans are going to debate coaching decisions. Fans are going to question roster moves. Fans are going to criticize management. Fans are going to discuss officiating. Fans are going to defend their favorite players. That's sports. That's how sports have always worked. But somehow, when it comes to the WNBA, there seems to be a completely different standard. People are told they need to support every player. They're told they need to support every team. They're told they need to stop criticizing coaches. They're told they need to stop questioning front office decisions. They're told they need to stop discussing controversies. Why? Why should sports fans suddenly behave differently just because the league is the WNBA? I've never understood that. Take my own sports fandom as an example. If I'm watching football, I'm rooting for the Philadelphia Eagles. That's my team. I can watch other games and appreciate great players, but the Philadelphia Eagles are my team. Baseball, the Phillies. Basketball, the Sixers. Hockey, the Flyers. MLS, the Philadelphia Union. That's normal. That's how sports fandom works. Nobody tells Philadelphia Eagles fans that they must support every NFL team. Nobody tells Phillies fans they have to cheer for every Major League Baseball franchise. Nobody tells Sixers fans they can't criticize coaching decisions. Yet, somehow, when it comes to Caitlin Clark, people act like her fans are breaking some unwritten rule. If someone says, "I'm a Caitlin Clark fan" first, people lose their minds. If someone says, "I'm following Caitlin Clark wherever she plays," people get angry. But why? Sports history is filled with player-driven fandoms. People followed Michael Jordan. People followed LeBron James. People followed Kobe Bryant. People followed Stephen Curry. This isn't new. Fans often connect with specific athletes before they connect with a specific team. There's absolutely nothing unusual about that. And that's why the criticism directed at Caitlin Clark fans feels so strange. Fans are simply doing what sports fans have always done. They're cheering, they're debating, they're analyzing, they're criticizing, they're supporting. That's normal behavior. Now, let's talk about another part of this conversation. One thing that constantly gets labeled as unacceptable is questioning coaching decisions. Apparently, that's something fans aren't supposed to do. But again, why not? Every sports fan in America questions coaches every single day. NFL fans do it, NBA fans do it. MLB fans do it. NHL fans do it. College sports fans do it. It's one of the most common things in sports. And yet, when WNBA fans start asking questions, suddenly they're accused of being toxic. That doesn't make sense. Now, when it comes to Caitlin Clark, there are plenty of situations that fans continue to debate. One example is the game where many people believe Caitlin Clark was effectively benched following highly publicized interactions with the coaching staff. Some people agree with that theory, some people disagree with it. That's fine. Sports fans debate things all the time. That's what makes sports interesting. The same thing applies to Sophie Cunningham. There are fans who looked at the entire Sophie Cunningham situation and came away believing that she received reduced opportunities because of everything surrounding that controversy. Again, maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, but asking the question shouldn't be treated like a crime. Sports fans speculate, sports fans analyze, sports fans form opinions. That's what they do. The bigger issue is the growing hostility directed toward the very people who are helping drive interest in the league. Because here's the reality. Fans matter. Without fans, there are no ratings. Without fans, there are no sold-out arenas. Without fans, there is no sponsorship deals. Without fans, there's no growth. The fans are not the enemy. The fans are the reason professional sports exist. That's true in the NBA, that's true in the NFL, that's true in Major League Baseball, and it's true in the WNBA. That's why attacking fans is such a dangerous strategy, because eventually people get tired of being told they're the problem. Eventually people stop engaging. Eventually people stop watching. Eventually people stop caring. And that's not good for anybody. The WNBA has made tremendous progress. There's no denying that. The visibility is higher, the conversation is bigger, the interest level is stronger. But much of that momentum has been connected to Caitlin Clark and the enormous audience that follows her. That's not an insult to the league. That's simply acknowledging reality. Caitlin Clark became a transformational figure in women's basketball. She brought millions of people into the conversation, and many of those people remain engaged because of her. That's why the league should be embracing those fans rather than pushing them away. At the end of the day, sports are supposed to be fun. Fans should be allowed to cheer for who they want. Fans should be allowed to criticize who they want. Fans should be allowed to ask questions. Fans should be allowed to debate. Fans should be allowed to disagree. That's what happens in every successful sports league in the world. So if you're a Caitlin Clark fan and you felt like you've been unfairly targeted simply for supporting your favorite player, you're definitely not alone. A lot of people have noticed it. A lot of people have talked about it. And whether others agree or disagree, the conversation isn't going away anytime soon. Because the reality is, sports fans are going to keep being sports fans. But yeah, so apparently you're the problem. Not the product on the court, not the drama that constantly seems to surround the league, not the strange roster decisions that leave fans scratching their heads, not the teammate conflicts, not the coaching controversies, not the front office decisions that get questioned every single season, not the players who seem to disappear from the league despite obvious talent, not the officiating that fans complain about game after game. No. According to some people, none of that is the issue. It's not the bad officiating, it's not the activism, it's not the poor coaching, it's not the questionable hires, it's not the public controversies, it's not the fake racism allegations that exploded into headlines and then seemed to disappear without any meaningful apology to the people who were accused. It's not the fact that many Indiana Fever fans felt abandoned when the organization failed to defend them. It's not the attacks on Caitlin Clark on the court. It's not the attacks on Caitlin Clark off the court. It's not any of that. You are the problem. You, the fan. You, the person watching the games. You, the person buying the tickets. You, the person purchasing the merchandise. You, the person creating engagement. You, the person spending time discussing the league. Apparently, you're the issue because you noticed things. You asked questions. You formed opinions. You criticized decisions. You debated controversies. You did exactly what sports fans have done for generations. And somehow, that has become unacceptable. Your role, according to some people, is apparently very simple. Show up, spend money, watch games, cheer loudly, ask no questions, raise no concerns, challenge nothing, criticize nobody. Just consume the product and move along. Well, sorry, but that's not how sports work. That's never how sports have worked. Sports fans question everything. They always have. Sports fans argue about coaching decisions. Sports fans debate draft picks. Sports fans complain about referees. Sports fans question ownership. Sports fans question front offices. Sports fans question rotations. Sports fans question playing time. Sports fans question strategy. Sports fans question injury reports. Sports fans question media coverage. Sports fans question literally everything. That's part of being a sports fan. In fact, if you're not questioning anything, you're probably not paying attention. I've said this before, but look at baseball. I'm a Phillies fan. For a long time, fans wanted changes. Fans complained. Fans demanded accountability. Fans wanted better results. Eventually, changes happened. The team turned things around. That's sports. Look at football. The Eagles are another example. The year the Eagles won the Super Bowl, there were moments where fans were frustrated. There were moments where people wanted coaches fired. There were moments where people thought the season was heading in the wrong direction. And then the season ended with a championship. Again, that's sports. Fans react emotionally. Fans overreact. Fans celebrate. Fans panic. Fans argue. Fans dream. Fans complain. Fans hope. Fans do all of those things because they're invested. That's what fandom is. Yet somehow, when WNBA fans do the exact same thing, they're treated differently. They're told they're toxic. They're told they're obsessed. They're told they're conspiracy theorists. They're told they don't understand the game. They're told they don't understand the league. They're told they don't understand what players have gone through. And at some point, you have to ask yourself why. Why are fans being treated like a problem? Why are questions being treated like attacks? Why is criticism being treated like hate? Because criticism is not hate. Questioning a coaching decision is not hate. Questioning a front office decision is not hate. Questioning officiating decision is not hate. Questioning media narratives is not hate. It's sports. That's all it is. Now, another thing that gets ignored in these conversations is the fact that fans are not robots. Fans are not required to agree with everything. Fans are not required to love every decision. Fans are not required to support every player equally. Fans are not required to support every coach equally. Fans have opinions. That's what makes sports interesting. Without opinions, sports would be boring. Without debates, sports would be boring. Without disagreements, sports would be boring. Without passionate fans, sports would be boring. And that's why I laugh when people act shocked that fans have strong reactions. Of course they do. They're invested. They're emotionally invested. They're financially invested. They're spending their time watching. They're spending their money supporting. They're spending their energy discussing. And then they're told to sit down and be quiet. That's ridiculous. Now, let's talk about the media for a second, because this is something that continues to stand out. One thing I've noticed repeatedly is that many media members don't actually address the substance of what fans are saying. Instead, they attack the fans themselves. They attack motives, they attack character, they attack intelligence, they attack intentions, but they rarely address the actual question. That's the part that fascinates me. If fans ask questions about Caitlin Clark, address the question. If fans ask questions about Indiana Fever coaching decisions, address the question. If fans ask questions about officiating, address the question. If fans ask questions about roster construction, address the question. Instead, too often the response becomes an attack on the people asking, and that's not productive. That's not how healthy conversations work. It's certainly not how sports conversations work. The reality is that fans want answers. Fans want transparency. Fans want accountability. Fans want honesty. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Take the Caitlin Clark discussions. Whether people agree with every criticism or not, fans are going to discuss her treatment. They're going to discuss how she's covered. They're going to discuss how she's officiated. They're going to discuss how she's marketed. That's inevitable. Caitlin Clark is one of the biggest stories in basketball. Of course people are going to talk about her. The same thing applies to discussions involving A'ja Wilson. The same thing applies to discussions involving Kelsey Plum. The same thing applies to discussions involving the Indiana Fever. The same thing applies to discussions involving Stephanie White. The bigger the profile, the bigger the conversation. That's how sports work. And speaking of Stephanie White, remember the comments about not being here to appease fans? Look, that may sound great inside a locker room, it may sound tough, it may sound strong, it may sound confident, but when those comments reach the public, fans are naturally going to react because fans are the customers. Without fans, there is no league. Without fans, there is no television deal. Without fans, there are no sponsorship revenue. Without fans, there are no packed arenas. Without fans, there is no growth. That's just reality. Now, let's talk about another example. Remember Christine Brennan? Remember all the debates surrounding coverage, narratives, and media treatment? Again, whether you agree with every point being made or not, people are allowed to discuss those issues. They're allowed to form opinions. They're allowed to disagree. That's not toxic. That's normal. And then you have the comments from people who act like fans somehow control coaches. Nobody believes that. Nobody thinks they personally control coaches. Nobody thinks they personally control front offices. Nobody thinks they personally control general managers. What fans believe is that they have the right to an opinion, and they are absolutely correct. They do. If someone spends money supporting a team, they can have an opinion. If someone buys tickets, they can have an opinion. If someone watches games every night, they can have an opinion. That's not entitlement, that's fandom. There's a massive difference. Now, I know some people will point to history. They'll talk about how the WNBA has always operated. They'll talk about traditions. They'll talk about culture. They'll talk about what the league has been through. And that's fine. History matters. But history doesn't change reality. The reality is that sports fans behave like sports fans. The reality is that fans are always going to ask questions. The reality is that fans are always going to criticize decisions. The reality is that fans are always going to debate controversial topics. The reality is that fans are always going to disagree with coaches, media members, players, and executives. That's never going away, nor should it, because passionate fans are not the problem. Engaged fans are not the problem. Curious fans are not the problem. Critical fans are not the problem. The people who care enough to watch, discuss, debate, argue, and support the game are not the enemy. They're the reason sports exist in the first place. So when fans are told they're obsessed, when fans are told they're toxic, when fans are told they're unhinged, simply for asking questions, don't be surprised when people push back. Because at the end of the day, fans are going to do what fans have always done. They're going to cheer, they're going to criticize, they're going to celebrate, they're going to panic, they're going to argue, they're going to dream, they're going to complain, they're going to hope. They're going to do all of those things because they're invested. That's what fandom is. And no matter how many people try to police that behavior, sports fans are still going to be sports fans. That's not changing anytime soon. So yes, fans are passionate. Yes, fans are invested. Yes, fans get emotional. That's not evidence that something is wrong. That's evidence that people care. What I find fascinating is how many people spend their time trying to police every single thing fans say. Think about that. Instead of discussing the actual topic, they spend all their energy discussing the people discussing the topic. That's a weird place to end up. If someone questions a coaching decision, address the coaching decision. If someone questions a rotation, address the rotation. If someone questions officiating, address the officiating. Instead, what happens? The fan gets attacked. The fan gets labeled. The fan gets dismissed. The fan gets insulted. And that's supposed to be productive? I don't think so. Now, another one I hear all the time is, "You don't know basketball." Okay, sure. I've heard that one more times than I can count. Apparently, anyone who disagrees with a popular narrative suddenly doesn't understand basketball. That's the shortcut. That's the easy way out. Because it's easier to insult somebody than it is to debate them. It's easier to attack a person than it is to attack an argument. And that's why the conversation so often goes there. What makes it even funnier is hearing accusations that people are only talking about these subjects for engagement. I get that one constantly. You're just chasing engagement. Really? Because I hear that from people who somehow manage to bring Caitlin Clark into every discussion imaginable. Even discussions that have absolutely nothing to do with Caitlin Clark somehow become Caitlin Clark discussions. Yet we're the ones chasing engagement. Okay, sure. The reality is that people discuss Caitlin Clark because she's relevant. She's one of the biggest stories in sports, not just women's basketball, sports, period. That's why people talk about her, and that's why discussions involving the WNBA continue to come back to Caitlin Clark. Now, one thing I've always tried to do is be honest. People can disagree with me, that's fine. People can criticize me, that's fine. People can argue with me, that's fine. But honesty matters, because at the end of the day, that's all any creator really has. If you lose credibility, you've lost everything. So when I say something, whether people agree with it or not, I'm saying what I actually believe, not what I think people want to hear, not what some media outlet wants me to say, not what a fan base wants me to say, what I actually think. And I think that's part of what frustrates some people, because there is an alternative now. The old model isn't the only model anymore. Fans have options. Fans can go directly to independent creators. Fans can go directly to alternative voices. Fans can find people discussing topics that traditional media ignores. And I think that reality makes some people uncomfortable, because the gatekeepers don't have the same control they used to have. That's just the reality of the modern media landscape. Now, does that mean every independent voice is correct? Of course not. Does that mean every media member is wrong? Of course not. But competition exists now, and competition changes everything. The audience gets to decide. The audience gets to choose. The audience gets to support the voices they find valuable. And that's why I think some of the hostility toward fan communities exists. Because fan communities are powerful. Fan communities move conversations. Fan communities shape narratives. Fan communities influence what gets attention. And nowhere is that more obvious than with Caitlin Clark. The growth around Caitlin Clark has fundamentally changed the conversation around the WNBA. Whether people like that or not, it's true. The audience is larger, the attention is larger, the scrutiny is larger. Everything is larger. And with that comes more opinions, more debates, more criticism, more discussion. That's unavoidable. But the point remains. When people who simply enjoy watching Caitlin Clark play basketball get attacked, it stands out. Because most of those people are just sports fans. They're not looking for fights. They're not looking for controversy. They like watching basketball. That's it. And when those fans feel unwelcome, that's a problem. Not because they're always right, not because they're above criticism, but because they're part of the audience. They're part of the reason people are paying attention. And here's another thing that gets overlooked. A lot of Caitlin Clark fans are not newcomers to sports. A lot of them have been around sports their entire lives. Many have played, many have coached, many have officiated, many have trained athletes, many have studied strategy, many have spent decades around sports. They're not clueless, they're not ignorant, they're not outsiders. They're sports fans. And even the fans who are new because of Caitlin Clark deserve respect too, because every sport needs new fans. The NFL isn't massive because of hardcore fans alone. The NFL needs casual fans too. The NBA needs casual fans. Major League Baseball needs casual fans. Every league needs casual fans. Growth comes from expanding beyond the hardcore audience. That's how sports become cultural forces. That's how leagues thrive. That's how leagues survive. Which brings me back to the central point. The constant attacks on fans don't make sense, especially when those fans are the very people helping grow the game. Fans pointing out problems isn't hate. Fans asking questions isn't hate. Fans debating decisions isn't hate. Fans being passionate isn't hate. It's fandom, pure and simple. Because when fans stop asking questions, that's not a good thing. When fans stop debating, that's not a good thing. When fans stop caring, that's not a good thing. When fans become silent, that's not a good thing. Silence doesn't mean satisfaction. Sometimes silence means people have checked out. Sometimes silence means people no longer care. And that's the real danger. Not criticism, not debate, not passionate conversations. Apathy. Apathy is what leagues should fear. Because when fans care enough to argue, they still care. When fans care enough to complain, they still care. When fans care enough to debate for hours, they still care. And that's something worth remembering. Anyway, this turned into a much longer discussion than I expected. A lot longer, actually. But if you made it this far, I appreciate you listening. If you enjoyed it, like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you think. Don't forget, like and subscribe.